Hello, I'm Michelle Elliott, and I thought I'd have a go again at making a little screen capture and a little video showing what I do in Lightroom. The image that I've got on the screen is my starting image, and I've made a copy of how I transformed it. There's not a massive difference, but I just kind of think it improves it a little bit, and I'm just going to go through the stages and show you what I do to get that. So the images have already been imported, and I start in Lightroom, and this is my starting image. I'll just remove this bar to make the screen a bit bigger. When I'm using Lightroom, I like the panels on. I like the navigator panel so I can zoom in and easily zoom in, go back to full size. On the right hand side, I keep all the panels in solo mode. If you have all the panels open, I just show you, it can be a bit of a pain kind of scrolling up and down. And so to make that easier, if you right click any of the panels and click on solo mode, and it closes them all up. So the first thing I'm going to do with my image, I like the bird in the frame, and I like the pier down there. This is the West Pier in Brighton. My verticals are leaning, that's the new i360, and I don't really need that. My focus is on the sky and the bird and a little tiny bit in the foreground, but this is what I'm going to do. So first of all, I'm going to transform it just to straighten the verticals. If I click on transform, if I try the various options, auto, it will certainly straighten the vertical, and I could actually crop the image down and down there to actually remove those white spaces. Incidentally, you could actually do this in Photoshop and do an autofill of those white spaces so you keep the proportions. Switch that off and see what the other options are. If I go for vertical, it's doing a similar thing. It's very much the same as auto. A little bit of a difference. Full, what's that going to do? That's not going to make much more difference. Let's switch them off. And if I go for guided, this is the new function that Lightroom CC has got, where if you press guided, you get little guidelines where you can actually tell it what perspective to look at. So if I click on guided and draw a straight line down the i360 to say that is one of the lines I want to be vertical, and then keep my horizon straight, so draw the line across my horizon, you'll see, got tickly throat, you'll see that it kind of corrects the image. I click down. So I think I'll leave it like that. I have this urge to actually tilt it all, I'll just show you, because I want the sun and the clouds to be straight, but that's not going to work. So then I look at the picture and think, what do I think needs doing to it? I don't feel it needs much, but the colours themselves, it's a bit flat, it needs a bit more contrast, even though you've got all this dark area down here because I've exposed for the sky. I just want this to be a bit more punchier, if that's the word. So if I start with my little basic panel, which isn't shown, so if I right click one of these tabs and click basic, go up to the basic panel. I'm not going to change the exposure, I don't think. If I pull it down, you'll see what happens if I lighten it, darken. If I decrease the exposure, makes it very dark. If I lighten it, it just makes it look like daylight. And actually you can see what is actually going on down on the beach. So it's a bit grainy because it's ISO 500. I don't want it grainy like that. So I pull it back, double click on exposure, and it resets it. Might lighten it just a fraction, just to actually give some more light to the clouds. What I do want to do though is I want to keep the whites where they are. I don't think I want to add more white, but if you want to see where the white points are, if you hold, I click on the oh, my throat is tickling. If I click on the white, if I hold down the Alt button, it goes black, and then if I move the slider, as soon as you start seeing some colour on the screen, that's showing you where you've got white appearing on the screen, and it is where the sun is setting. The same with the black. So I click on the black and hold down the Alt. This is on a Mac keyboard, by the way. Again, those little blue, if I take it right down, it would all be, the black point isn't clipping. If I pull it back, wherever bits of blue area are, that is where it's going to be solid black. So I just want just a little bit of black to give it some contrast. I feel I can afford to increase the whites, so add a bit more whites. And the difference, if I show you between the two, I'll show you before and after. So the clouds were originally darker. I've lightened them a bit, and I've lightened the areas. I'll push that back just a fraction down the exposure. What I also want to do is increase the clarity. This increases the mid-tones. If I increase that a little bit, you see it puts a bit of more detail in that area, and the vibrancy to actually increase the colours. It doesn't saturate, saturation is down there. But vibrancy, so I'll just go to two extremes so you can see. If I push it right down, it makes it more or less black and white, but you can see there is colour still in that image. If I push it right to the far end, then, whoops, totally looks very unreal. That's its normal point. And if I just increase it just a little bit. I do actually have an odd smudge on my camera, on the lens. I'm not quite sure how I did that, but to remove it, if I go up to the clone tool, I could go to heal, make a brush a little bit, try and gauge this, a bit bigger than the smudge itself, just feather the edges, and I'm just going to draw over where my smudge is. It should pick another point and clone the area from there, or heal from there. If I wasn't happy with that point, I could press the / and it looks for a different area, so it's just pulled it a little bit closer. If I press it again, it's moved it down slightly, but it's okay, so I press done. Go back to full screen. The other thing I'm going to do is actually add a bit of light where the sun is reflecting in this area. So where the windows are catching some of the sunlight, I'm just going to enhance that a little bit. So I'm going to take a brush, reset all the settings to 0, and what I want to do is increase the highlights, lighten just a little bit, increase the clarity, and probably that's it for now. And then I just paint over and rub over. As you can see, if I just show you all the bit, what's happening, it's kind of putting detail back in that area. I'm just going to press delete to remove that, so actually do it a bit more carefully. So I'll reduce the brush, and I'm just going to go over some of the little bits, just try to catch where the light is catching as well. So I don't want it all lit up. Sometimes, I don't know if you can see this, it is actually moving. If I put the press the O on the keyboard, it shows you where the mask area is, and that is where I've drawn over. It sometimes lets me actually move it in its entirety with my pen. I'll remove that again. Try a third attempt. Oh, I've moved it. I'll pull it back. It's probably very subtle. On the i360 itself, on the little terror, and actually on the C. If I click the O, you'll see what's happened. It's probably far too much. Can you see there's like a white halo round the i360 little pod? I zoom right into that. What I can do, I've still got the brush active, so if I press erase, press the O on the keyboard so I can see where I've drawn. I've got erase. If I make my brush smaller, and it's on auto mask, and then I paint away where I don't want the effect to actually be. You could be more careful doing this the first time so you don't need to paint over. And again, you can use the auto mask tool to actually be more precise about the lines. Just draw it straight in there. So I just want the edge to catch a bit of the light. If I press O, then you'll see the effect, and press the before and after key. It's moving because I've actually adjusted the perspective. It's a little bit more on the inside of that. So if I make it bigger, up here at the moment I'm on 1:1. if I go, let's try 3 to 1, then I can get more detail. So I'm still on the erase brush. I can zoom in and remove where I've painted to actually increase the highlights and the exposure. Get rid of that. Okay, that should do it. Zoom back out. So it's very subtle. The last thing I want to do is add add a little bit of contrast. So the contrast up here, if I move it along, I just kind of think it adds a bit more depth to the picture. Yeah, I'm happy with that. The pier itself is a bit lost as a bit of a silhouette, and it's a bit skew whip. I don't really think in real life it leans as much as that. That's the effect of actually straightening the actual i360, because that was so obviously bent when you saw the original. If I go back to the original, and there, admittedly, I think it's to do as well with the curvature of my lens, because I'm using a wide angle lens. I was using it on, it's a little Fuji, it's XT1, and it was on 19.6mm, so it's relatively wide. I don't think it's that noticeable. Go back to the after effect, so I'll leave it like that. So I've increased the contrast, and the last thing I'm going to do is add a bit of detail. So the sharpening, this area up here you can either switch on or off. You can kind of zoom in if there was a particular area you wanted to actually focus on to check the detail. At 1 to 1 it'll show there. But I'm going to increase the sharpening a little bit. I'm going to keep the radius up at 1 just to keep the pixels at 1. And the masking, what it does, when it sharpens, it looks all little pixels and it increases the contrast to sharpen them. But some big areas like this blue sky, I don't want that to actually sharpen. I just want the areas where the lines and the clouds are sharpened. So by applying a mask, if I click on mask and hold down the Alt button on the Mac keyboard and pull it along, there you can see all those little white areas of where it would sharpen. If I keep on increasing the mask, so it eventually goes to the big blue sky areas are black, it's not going to sharpen those areas. It's only going to sharpen the areas where there's a line. Let go. To see the difference, it's probably very subtle. I don't think you would notice a great deal, but close up you can see it. I can't even open the detail now. There. So my before and after, that's my before, that's my after. One last thing I think I'll do, I'll go to the tone curve, and I think actually I want to make the black a bit more matte. So the black is down in this corner, the whites are up in that corner. If I push this up a little bit, and it won't go there, it's actually, let's see what it looks like. It's just increase it just a little bit. You can click on these lines, pull it down, push that up. I'm just going to do before and after. That's before, that's after. I decide if I like it. I kind of, what don't I like about it? I think the blue is actually almost too blue. So if I reduce the vibrancy, maybe reduce the saturation a little bit, but up the contrast. No, that makes it far too dark and stormy. Okay, want to keep the shadows there. Does that make much of a difference? So if I actually switch the tone curve off, I'm trying to see what I prefer. Go to split toning. I don't want to go to split toning. No, it's so little, it's not really making much of a difference. Just go back to linear, maybe just a little bit of contrast. Okay, that's going to be my finished picture. So before and after, I remove the side panels,